Nearly 2 days after the tragic siege in Sydney ended, shock is giving way to disbelief. How is it possible that the gunman, Man Haron Monis, a man with a history of extremism and violence, wasn't on any sort of police or intelligence watch list? How is he out on bail while facing murder and sexual assault charges? The Prime Minister has announced a review into all of that, as well as the drastic police actions that brought the siege to an end. 7:30 has pieced together a detailed account of Man Haron Monis's life, from his early years in Iran to the murder of his ex-wife and his prosecution on dozens of sexual assault charges. Adam Harvey and Connor Duffy report.
The terror has gone from the heart of Sydney. In its place, grief and solidarity. As a nation mourns its dead, we're learning more about Man Haron Monis.
I know him and he knows me as well. And I said, listen, this character is dangerous to Australia.
You know, in 17 years of law, he's probably one of the most unusual characters that's ever walked into my office. Wouldn't listen to advice, wouldn't concentrate on what I was saying to him because he was too busy making speeches.
One thing I am confident about in my own mind, having met this man, is that when he went into that Lindt shop, that cafe, he knew he wasn't coming out.
This is the first footage we have of him at a religious school in Iran, probably in the early 1990s. He came to Australia in 1996 under a different name.
And why did you leave Iran?
Because my life was in danger.
In 2001, he was interviewed on Radio National.
What was your position in the government?
In Iran, mostly I have been involved with the Ministry of Intelligence and Security.
Your family is back in Iran and they are not allowed to join you, is this correct?
Yes, more than 4 years I have not seen my family, and the Iranian regime doesn't let them come out. In fact, I can say they are hostage. As a hostage, the Iranian regime wants to make me silent, and because I have some secret information about government and about their terrorist operations in the world.
The Iranian government has a different story.
In 1996, he was the manager of a travel agency and committed fraud. He then fled to Malaysia, from there to Australia with a fake name. Following legal proceedings in the year 2000, our judiciary informed Interpol about his crime and demanded Australia extradite him. They claimed they did not have a criminal extradition agreement with Iran and refused to do so.
I come to know through the media and I said, I know this guy.
When Monis arrived in Australia, some in the Iranian community were immediately suspicious.
So I said, what is your job? He said, can I tell you later? I said, no, you tell me now. He said he was the secretary of the intelligence service from Iran. And then I was shocked totally. And I said, this is a very bad job, actually. This is the suitcase for him. He got to go.
Cyrus Sarang is an Iranian refugee activist, but he refused to support Monis's push for refugee status and claims he even tried to have him sent home.
But he tried to drag me in for to support him, but I did not. And I rejected him because he was the secretary of the intelligence service from Iran. It is very dangerous, and I do not know. Maybe his hand is in the blood, and maybe he killed Iranian people. We don't know. But that's why I rejected him.
Monis claimed to be a religious scholar, but he wasn't acting like a sheikh.
A self-proclaimed sheikh has been charged with sexually assaulting a woman while he was posing as a spiritual healer.
In the early 2000s, he claimed he was an expert in astrology, numerology and meditation. Police say it was just a front for his crimes.
It's alleged he assaulted a 27-year-old woman in August of 2002.
At the same time he was allegedly sexually abusing women, he was obsessed with a political cause, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq.
He basically accused, Australia of invading Islamic territories, and that the parents should feel should not mourn the loss of their children, that they deserved what they got.
One of the letters was to the family of Greg Sher, a commando killed in Afghanistan. Private Sher was Jewish.
A Jewish man who kills innocent Muslim civilians is not a pig. He is 1,000 times worse.
Why does he write the letters? He writes the letters, according to him, and I believe that was his view at the time, that he would enlist their support to lobby the Australian government to get on his side, thinking that deceased family members would of course be against the Australian government given that their loved ones have died. Now, we can look back at that and we can look at the content of the letters and say, how could you possibly think that?
Why did you write the letters?
Monis was charged with harassing the families. Lawyer Adam Hooder represented him in 2009.
I've never been in a position where I've had to sack a client, but we walked into the court on the first day where his matter was first mentioned in court, and I gave him specific advice not to make any public comment to the media.
It's a bit hysterical and political, the prosecution, but the court will find the true answer. Okay. Bye-bye. Check, we must go.
You were saying a peace activist?
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri.
Here's the moment when Hooder decided he'd had enough of his troublesome client.
Hey, let's just walk away.
And when he walked out, he released a chain from under his robe, tied himself to the court, and he was stuck there for the next 12 hours making speeches, holding signs. So I didn't want anything to do with that madness.
At the time, ABC radio presenter Rachel Conn was accused of defaming Monis after she warned that the Islamic community was ignoring his extremism.
In my mind was the realization that this man is an extremist who is promoting jihad.
Monis had other problems. In 2011, his estranged wife, Nolene Hassan Pal, went to police, saying Monis had threatened to shoot her if she didn't let him see their 2 young sons. At the time, Monis told police he'd had a gun licence and a weapon for his past work as a security guard, but the licence had expired years earlier and he no longer had a gun.
Plainly, there are questions to be asked when someone with such a history of infatuation with extremism, violent crime and mental instability should be in possession of a gun licence.
In April 2013, as Monis's legal battles continued, police were called to his Western Sydney apartment block.
He actually said that I just seen a lady get murdered in the hallway. From what he was saying, she got something poured on her and they lit it.
Nolene Hassan Pal had been stabbed and set alight.
She was attacked, allegedly by another woman, in the stairwell.
Monis's partner, Amira Drudis, was charged with the murder. Police alleged he organised it. They were both granted bail.
In April, Monis was charged with sexually assault.
Earlier this year, he was charged with 43 sex offences over the assaults that had begun more than a decade earlier. He was initially refused bail, but was then freed even though the court found he posed an unacceptable risk of endangering the safety of the victims, individuals or the community, and also of interfering with witnesses.
He gets sentenced, he does his community service hours. Some weeks after that he gets charged with these offences in relation to the death of his former wife. He spends this time in custody, about which we've spoken, gets released on bail. A month or 2 or 3 months, I beg your pardon, after that he's then charged with these sexual assault offences and indecent assault offences. He's again incarcerated before he gets bail again.
Plainly, there are questions to be asked, and I want answers to these questions when someone who has been involved in a horrific murder is out on bail. I mean, plainly these are questions that are begging to be asked and which are requiring answers as swiftly as possible.
This pen is my gun, and these words are my bullets.
Monis had been fighting the charges over the offensive letters for 5 years. That long battle came to a head last Friday.
The High Court refused to remove his case into the High Court, and they dismissed his application at about 9:30 in the morning.
Was the decision on Friday the end of the line for your client?
Not technically, but as a practical matter, probably.
He was due to be tried on the sexual assault charges early next year.
With someone with such a dogmatic ideology as this man had, it's quite possible he may well have considered that prison for him was inevitable, whether he actually did what he was alleged to have done or not. If that was his thought process, he may well have considered, I have nothing to lose.
On Monday morning, man Haron Monis walked into the Lindt Cafe to take his revenge.
Adam Harvey reporting.